Hey polish fans, it's Caroline again and welcome to another video here at Wild Moon Lacquer. In today's video we are doing a little repair my nail video, showing you how I used these Swiss silk wraps to help repair a crack in my nail. We've basically been moving around a lot of the different rooms in our house to create a nail room for me, and I bashed in my long pinky nail. I have a picture up there of how long the nail was at the time, but it broke here in the nail bed, so I didn't want to cut it. I wouldn't be able to. It is attached to my finger. So what I did was use these silk wraps to repair it, and it worked wonderfully. So I thought since I needed to change my mani and do the wrap again, I would show you how I did it. So Willa is being very chatty. So the product that I used is this here. I think I got it on Amazon. It is from Supernail. It is their Swiss silk pre-shaped self-adhesive wrap tabs, and they come in these shapes here. And even though they come in, we'll call them nail shapes, kind of, you know, to fit your finger. Obviously for most of my fingers, I've got pretty small nails. I think my thumb might be the only one that I would really be able to match any of these up with. So I did cut mine to shape. I don't think you have to cover your entire nail, but I did end up covering most of my pinky when I did it the first time. I did cut down my nails when I took off my previous mani. That way my broken nail wouldn't have too much length to create a bending point should I accidentally bump it again. So I am going to cover this section right here. You could see that crack. So let's go ahead and see what we need to get this done. You will need the silk wraps and then some type of glue. This is not the glue that came with this, but the glue that came with these, by the time I got around to using it, was very dried out, but this worked nicely. This is from the Kiss brand, and it is their maximum speed nail glue. You'll also need a rose stick or a cuticle stick to help you move around the glue on your nail, unless you of course have a glue that comes with a brush applicator. You'll also need a pair of scissors to cut your silk strips into the correct shape. Alright, so I still have part of the wrap that I used for my previous nail. That was how it originally was, and I basically just used that tip of it to wrap around my nail, and I did cut it even more to shape. So this is what the remainder of that strip looks like. Obviously this is way too big for the finger that I'm going to be using on, so I'm going to measure it out. Like I said, this time I am not going to be adding the silk wrap to the entire nail. I don't think there's really any need for it to be all the way down here towards my cuticle because the break is way up here. So what I'm going to do is just cut off a little piece. Don't really need all that much. In fact, even this tiny little square here is probably bigger than my entire pinky nail. And let's just go ahead and do a size comparison. The one thing is, I will say that the backing on this is very stiff, so it is harder to get it to wrap on your nail to get it accurately sized. This seems to be the right width, but it's still a bit bigger than I need it, so I'm going to cut this one again, just right in half. Yeah, I think we're going to go with that. So I think what I'm going to do is trim off some of this extra threading that is showing up there. Having that on the nail will just mess with the glue and create areas that are going to stick up and cause issues later on. Now, one of the cool things about these is they are self-adhesive, so all you have to do is peel them off from the backing and stick them right on your nail. Now, I've already done this part, but if you are applying them yourself, what you want to do is preemptively buff your natural nail so that you get rid of all of the shine. That way this has something a bit more abrasive to stick to. Next up, we want to just go ahead and line it up as close to the edge of the nail, covering as much of the break as we can. And just press it down. Whoops. Alright, so there we have it on the nail. It's not exactly sticking all the way to the edge. I did try to make sure that I got all of the shine off of my nail with my glass nail file, but I think I'm still getting a little bit of non-sticking towards the edge. I think that did happen the last time that I did this as well, but it seemed to work okay. You just need to be careful when you're applying the glue not to move the patch off of your nail when you're applying the glue. Alright, so next comes the glue, and what I did was start with a drop on the patch there, and then just use your cuticle stick to move around the glue and spread it evenly, covering the patch that you just applied. That'll give you the best bond for this application and make sure that the patch sticks nicely. And like I said, with the patch not sticking on its own towards the edge, just be careful with how you're applying the stick. As you can see, once you have the glue on it, the patch basically disappears. You can see though, I do have some threads coming up there from the patch. That's why, if you can, try to make sure that you cut them neatly and you get all of the extra threads off. Now that won't ruin the mani, but it will be something that you might want to buff off later. That way it doesn't come up through your manicure. So now comes the fun part, letting this dry. Alright, so that is dry to the touch now. That did take quite a long time, probably over 20 minutes for that to fully dry. I don't know if it's just the type of glue that I used. It did take quite a long time last time as well. So if you have something that dries quicker, I'm sure it would knock off quite a lot of time from this process. But we do have it nice and secured. You can see the break right there underneath the patch, although I don't know on camera if it's going to be easy to see where the patch ends, but that ends right there. So we have all of that where the patch is covering the nail. Now the next step is to make sure that you have all of the free edge clear. That might need some filing to get rid of some of the extra threads that are on the patch that are extending past the nail edge. Just be careful to only go under the nail. You don't want to rip up the adhesion that you have with the patch. And I think that's about all that I'm going to do. I don't want to rip up any of that, but that did get rid of a little bit of the excess that I had on that side. This side's looking pretty good, although I did sort of put my finger into the wet glue while it was drying, but that should be all set for our next step, which is to apply a base coat. In this case, I am using the W7 Nail Armor. This is actually fairly hard to find, I feel. I'm able to find it on Amazon, but initially I was introduced to it by finding it at Grocery Outlet, and I really like how it made my nails nice and strong. So this is what we're going to be using on that finger to seal in the patch and make the nail surface nice and smooth for my next mani. Now, unfortunately, this is towards the end of the bottle, so it is a little bit on the stringy side. Hopefully I still have enough to cover a nail. So we're just going to cover this just like you would apply a normal base coat. This one is, like I said, a bit on the thick side, but for this purpose, that is exactly what we want. We want to cover any of the ridges that might be there from the silk patch. And just make sure you cover all of the edges. So after that dries, you are all set to apply a new manicure. I'm gonna let that dry and pick out a polish to go on next. But hopefully you guys found that helpful. I know for myself, this finger in particular, my pinkies actually in general, are the ones that have a tendency of breaking, and usually when they do break, it is in the nail bed like this one here. So this is going to be a method that I feel like I will be using every time this happens. Let me know down below if you found any other ways to repair a nail that you like to use. And as always, if you are new to my channel, make sure to hit the little subscribe button down below. That way you don't miss out on any of my new videos, and I will see you in that next one.